Hi, my name is Paul Nurkala, and I am the 2018 World Champion of Drone Racing. And one of the questions that I get all the time is, how do I get started in FPV? Or what's the first thing I should buy? Or, all these kinds of questions about getting started. And that's awesome. I am so excited for people to be getting started in FPV. And I want more and more people to join in the drone racing, freestyle, cine, flying trend that we've got going on. It's an amazing hobby. It's something that I want everyone to be a part of. So as part of those early questions that I'm getting from people, I want to dive in and kind of break down some of the first purchases that you should be making in your journey to FPV, or what order should you be purchasing things in to kind of have a successful journey, so that you're not wasting money, you're not spending it on things that you don't need, but you're building opportunities, you're creating opportunities for yourself. And that's what we're going to go for through this video today. First thing that I want to suggest, and it's really kind of a 1-2 tie. You might want to get both of them at the same time, but for some people it may make sense, it may not the other way. But really the first thing that I encourage people to buy is a controller. This is my controller, and it's actually the first controller that I ever purchased. It's the Taranis 9XD or X9D or something like that. This is, when it was new, a $200 controller that has lasted me literally my entire drone racing career. I bought this with my first drone, and I still use it on a professional level today. It's not in great shape, I'll admit that. It's been through a lot in its time, but this has held up in one form or another from the beginning of my flying career, and that's why I want to suggest that you start with this. Half of that is because it's something that you're going to have from the beginning to the end, but the other part is you can plug it in and use it with a sim. Many different drone racing simulators exist in the market today. My personal recommendation is the Drone Racing League simulator, but there's a ton of different options out there ranging in price from free to $20 or $30 that all operate drones within 10% of the same as each other and with real drones. The point of learning how to fly on a sim is that you get a lot of experience flying something that is very close to a drone without any of the risks associated. Crashing is free, you don't risk hurting people or property, and you can practice for as much time as you want. When you're flying a real drone, you're limited by how many batteries you bring with you, and each of those batteries really realistically only fly for 3 to 5 minutes at a time, where in the sim you can get hours upon hours of training in without ever having to charge a battery or bring one to the field. And for that purpose, I think it's amazing for people to be able to start drone racing using a simulator. It's something that I wish I had when I got started, because I broke so many drones and so many parts and had so many frustrating days not able to practice something that I truly loved. And for that reason, getting a controller and getting a simulator first are some of the most important things. And just a quick note on flyability of sims. A lot of people like to kind of rag on sims, saying that, they don't fly like the real thing. What I say sims fly like is, it's another drone in my toolbox. So I have a 5-inch drone that I use to fly high-speed freestyle stuff. I have a Cinewhoop that I use to fly really slow and close to things. The sim is just another drone. It flies a little bit different than both of those. It's not exactly like one or the other. It's its own thing. But it's within, 5%, 10% of what it's really like to fly a drone. And for that reason, that's where you should be starting. You should absolutely get a real controller, so like a drone controller. You can use an Xbox controller or a PS4 controller to fly, for example, in the DRL sim. However, I absolutely recommend that you get something more like the Taranis or the DJI Smart Controller or a TBS Tango, something like that, because on the Taranis, look at this stick stays in position. This is your throttle stick if you fly mode 2, which is really common in the United States. It doesn't reset to 0, and in addition to not resetting to 0, you can go below axis and above axis. So this is going to be like mid to low throttle, and this is high to high throttle. When you look at that with an Xbox controller, instead of having that stick stay in the center, it drops all the way down and all the way up, but you lose a bunch of resolution. And these gimbals, while they're really, really nice for playing games, are actually very low resolution, where you want that extra high resolution to be able to control your drone. So this is an amazing thing to start with if maybe you're unsure. You might have one of these or a PS4 or something sitting at home, but I absolutely encourage everybody to get onto a real controller as soon as possible. So my very first 2 suggestions for getting into flying FPV is to buy a controller, buy a sim. At that point, if you can get a Tyrannus QX7 for I think $70. You can get a sim for free. So you're into FPV, practicing, learning what you need to be learning for $70, $70 to $100. And that's not a bad place to start, considering AAA video games are $60, $70 as it is. After getting started and getting confident in flying the simulator with your purchased controller, the next place that I encourage people to get going in FPV is to buy a little trainer drone. So this is an Emax Tiny Hawk. It's just my handy example of what a trainer drone should be. And this is extremely small. It weighs like 40 or 50 grams with a battery. It flies exactly like a real drone. It's just really small, safe, and it doesn't have very much mass. There's not a lot of momentum, so it's very hard to break it. For that reason, it's one of the first drones you should buy because it will link up with your current controller. You can use, these, for example, come with a pair of goggles if you want, the nice cheap pair of goggles. And you can kind of get used to what the real life aspects of flying with the drones are. Now you're going to get affected by wind or battery sag, stuff like that. And this kind of starts putting you down the path of confidently flying a real drone in a real environment. You could go to something a little bit bigger. You could go to something smaller. I recommend the Tiny Hawk because it's got enough weight, for example, to not be always buffeted around by so much wind, but it's also small enough that I confidently can, recommend flying it indoors, outdoors, whatever the weather is around you. Maybe this is Christmas time and you're looking for, a present for someone. That's what I like about this. In addition, these by default come on FrSky, which is directly compatible with the Tyrannus, which is the controller that I recommended at the beginning. So just another kind of easy way to continue making progressive steps into the hobby. And I think these are right around $100, maybe a little bit less. You're making big steps for not that very much. So at this point, you have your first drone, your first controller, and probably your first set of goggles for less than $200, and you are in the air with a real drone that people use drones this size like for on set. People race these drones regularly, so you're on your way to being in FPV in a big way. Now, the next step that I recommend in the process of getting into FPV is to get a good pair of goggles. The trainer goggles that you probably got with your Tiny Hawk or some other similar drone, cheaper ones in the $30, $40, $50 range are missing a lot of features. They have very poor range in general, and they're gonna kind of take away from the experience. So getting goggles like these are Fatshark HDOs. I don't even have HDO2s. I need to get some. Or the DJI digital FPV goggles if you want to go that route, which I have videos explaining one or the other, why you might choose one over the other. But having a good set of goggles with DVR so you can record with good battery, it's going to give you much better range, a much better experience flying overall. And again, a good set of goggles you won't ever have to replace. I've had this set for 3 or 4 years now. They're still the ones I use on a professional level. I don't need to change anything. And this is probably going to be your first big purchase. These goggles alone cost $500, plus this module here is in the $80 range. And then I've got another module here that's another $80, and this is like a $50 or $40 antenna. So they add up a little bit, but these are the things that you use with every single drone. So your goggles, transmitter, those should be your luxury purchases, and then your drones, you can make those a little bit more disposable and focus on getting good value with these. They are going to make the experience so much better in the long term of your flying career. As you've gotten good goggles and started to practice flying FPV, the next place I think you should go is, and this may or may not be true for everybody, but I think that the next place people should go is to learn to build their drones. So this requires buying tools, soldering irons, screwdrivers, prop wrenches, all these things. And I'll have a list of all of the things that you'll need to get going in FPV down in the description. But know that the next part that I recommend is that you learn how to build your own drone. And the reason I recommend this is because drones crash. And no matter how good you are, no matter how good you think you are, you're going to crash your drone, because as soon as you get good at something, you're going to want to try to be better at it or be good at something else. And that means you're going to crash trying to do those things, and then you're going to break stuff. And if you can't fix it on your own, you're going to be paying for a lot of new drones when you could be swapping out, $20 motors, $15 ESCs, things that are actually very easy to do if you learn how to build a drone. So my recommendation is not that you jump into a 5-inch, like a freestyle drone right away, but instead learn how to build one, because your life is going to be much, much easier in the long term if you are able to take care of that stuff yourself. So go out and buy your soldering iron, your tools, your flush cutters, extra solder, extra parts, and find a kit. I've got a couple kits listed in the description below. They're just, if you get all these parts, they will be compatible, and I have full build videos on how to go through all of that. But the key learning is go to and find a place to learn how to build your next drone, because that's where you're going to have the most value for your time and investment. So you need to buy maybe $100, $150 worth of tools and chargers, and then you're able to build your own drones from scratch, which is going to save you a lot of scratch in the long run. And then from that point, you should build your first 5-inch drone, whether that's a racing drone, a freestyle drone. I think 5-inch is still kind of king of, this is the best of all worlds in terms of size, speed, performance, excitement, long range, all of those good things. That's kind of the sweet spot for drones, I think. Not everybody's going to agree with me on that. I think most will. Then everybody should have a 5-inch drone in their arsenal. They should experience what that's like, because that's the sweet spot for FPV, just for having fun, for filming, whatever it is you want to do. That's one of the tools that's going to be in your toolkit for all of those goals. So absolutely learn how to build your drone, learn how to build your drone, and make your first 5-inch drone one that you built. If you don't like the building process and you want to just focus on repairing or fixing, go ahead and start buying your own 5-inch drones off the shelf. There's tons of great options out there. I've got one coming called the NERC Edition Bang God from Catalyst Machine Works. Stuff like that is all really, really good, but I'm not going to even try to sell you those before I say go learn how to build it yourself, because it is so much more valuable for your time to know how to work on drones and learn how to tune and do all that kind of stuff. So to sum all this up, absolutely, I want you to buy your first controller and sim within the same amount of time, within a short amount of time. Spend 2, 3, 4, 10 flight hours actually flying drones in the sim. Take an uncomfortable amount of time. Learn how to be comfortable and confident, so that you know that the first time you take off with a real drone, you're going to have the skills and the muscle memory that you need to have a successful first few flights. Once you're ready to graduate to real drones, get a little guy. Something that's not going to hurt anybody, something that's not going to break when it crashes, and practice on that a bunch. You should be able to buy 20 batteries for that for the price of one 5-inch battery, so you can take your time and learn how to fly really well on those without putting any gear or anyone at risk. Next, get some good goggles. Goggles are the best investment that you can make across your FPV career. I've used the same ones from the beginning. I don't even have 2 pairs because I trust them so much. That's the next place to go. And then finally, learn how to build drones. It's not everybody's cup of tea. Not everybody's going to want to do it, but go through it once so that you have the ability to do troubleshooting on your own, so that you can help guide other people, guide yourself, and save yourself money and time. And finally, once you've gotten comfortable building your 5-inch drone and you've built your own, then I'm totally fine with you starting to kind of jump into other things. X-class drones, cine whoops, big, weird drones, tricopters, long-range drones, I don't know, whatever it is you want to do, just go through that 5-inch build first, so that you kind of have experienced, what you should expect out of FPV, and then continue to go from there. So I hope that this was all useful. This is kind of me riffing off the top of my head how I would want someone to get into FPV, to have their first FPV experiences. I think there's a lot of good information here. I think this is the process that the majority of people end up doing in one way or another, and it's the way that I wish I would have gone, which was not an option because sims didn't exist when I got started flying, but that's neither here nor there. So Thanks very much for watching. I hope that this has been valuable information to you. Please like, subscribe, and share this video. And if you're so inclined, there's a join button in the description to be a YouTube member, which kind of gives me a small kickback for the advice and stuff that I try to share with you guys as often as I can. So appreciate you listening to that pitch. Thanks very much for watching. Have a great night. Stay flying.